This meeting is being recorded.
So this slide just captures just some of the information that we have in terms of why we emphasize the need to actually share that medicines information in a quick, fast, and efficient manner. As you can see from the evidence in front of you, there are a substantial number of reasons. These figures are just an illustration of only some of the many reasons why we need to share it more effectively. So if you look from the left of the slide, going across to the right, there's almost 240 million medication errors which occur on an annual basis. And this is just those that have been reported. There may be more that have actually not gone unreported. The next figure talks about the number of patients which are readmitted into hospital as a result of adverse events to medication. And that, as you can see here, when you're over 65, that can be as high as 20%. Some may argue it's due to the amount of medications a patient may be on at that age, or the medicines associated that are required at that time. However, if you look even below that, 6.5% is still a higher number than it should be. And if you look again to the right, there are a significant a number of occasions where patients have been could have been prevented from being readmitted to hospital. To have a figure as high as 66% shows that we need to do something that could be more effective in helping to mitigate some of this work and the readmissions as well. And then if you go down to the left, we've got evidence that there's almost 5 deaths that occur on a daily basis due to one of 3 reasons that could for medicines related information. So that could be due to the prescribing of medication, dispensing, or monitoring. And again, in this day and age, that number is far too high. And also there's evidence that we received as well. And these, again, based on quite conservative figures, that there are almost 167 million manual transcriptions occur every year within hospitals. And this, again, just to reemphasize these conservative figures, that could be upwards of 1.2 million hours of staff time, and more recent estimates have been almost as high as 2 million. And that comes as no surprise, and why interoperability has been one of the recommendations from the overprescribing review that has taken place recently by Professor Tony Avery, and hopefully we can help with that work as well that they're moving forward with. So over time, we have moved information in a quicker manner and sometimes in an electronic manner as well, but it's not interoperable currently, it's not structured, and therefore information can't be moved effectively from one system to another. And hence the reason why there's still transcription occurring at that time taken as well, and potential chances for error. In the past, the Royal Pharmaceutical Society has done some work, and they found that when a patient transfers one care setting to another, there's about a 30 to 70% chance of that medication being omitted or an error occurring with respect to one of those medications. And again, in this day and age, that really shouldn't be happening. I recall recently speaking to a patient who had come in with stage 5 kidney disease, which is at the point where they potentially will require a transplant, and just having a conversation with them, just what led them to coming to be in that position. And they mentioned that initially they're suffering from hypertension, like high blood pressure. They've gone to see a cardiologist in an outpatient setting. They've been prescribed some medication. Then they'd send that medication to be given by the GP. Unfortunately, the GP practice missed that letter, and that patient wasn't prescribed that medication. And for the subsequent year, that patient didn't take that medication, or wasn't given it, or wasn't prescribed it. And after a year, unfortunately, their blood pressure kept rising, and as time progressed, they ended up being so high with that blood pressure that they got admitted to hospital in ICU, and their kidney function was quite adversely impacted as a result. So they gone from being quite a healthy person to being someone who almost needs a transplant now because of that. So these are just some of the reasons why, by actually having that information to hand, be able to make informed decisions, provide better care at that point as well. So as I was just mentioning earlier, so we need to bring that information together to allow the staff to make informed decisions, to have the right information at the right time to make the right decision. And as you can see, this is just a snapshot of some of the many different care settings that patients will present at within for NHS care. And hence, if we reduce the number of times where patients repeat themselves, or where patients have actions that are supposed to be taken on their behalf, if we can make that structured and make sure that that does get transferred and effectively in an effective manner, and potentially in real time, it'll be safer for patients as well and better for staff. So if we can reduce that time taken, and that results in potentially those medications not being inadvertently missed. And the ambition is to create that fully digital interoperable system as a whole. You recognize this isn't easy. There are different ways in which information can be structured, and there are standards that we've created to help to mitigate that as well. So for example, the ISN that we've come up with recently and the dose syntax work as well, these are just using standards that are available, such as DMD, SNOMED, CT, and FHIR, etc. This is how we can effectively share information. So structured dose syntax is a combination of a number of terminology standards to produce a vocabulary that is brought together in a consistent structure. DMD is used to identify the medicine or active ingredient. SNOMED CT provides the routes, forms, sites, etc., and then supplemented by UCOM for standards units of measure. The HL7 FHIR standard provides the syntax around these terminologies to ensure a consistent message structure. And this is the heart of the challenge. This slide pretty well encapsulated it. So in primary care, people will prescribe in a more of a product, so they'll say take 2 tablets of 500 milligrams paracetamol, whereas in the hospital they don't really care about the actual form itself. It's just more about the dose. They'll just say paracetamol 1,000 milligrams, that's what you need to take. So the adoption of the HL7 FHIR, DMD, and SNOMED standards provide a way to describe medication instructions as coded computable statements. And this allows a programmatic conversion between the different ways primary and secondary care describe medication, giving us that interoperability between these systems and within shared record implementations. With that, I'll hand over to Chris, who'll be able to talk you through some of the achievements and what we've done so far. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Zed. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris O'Brien. I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Interoperable Meds team. So this slide you may have seen before. We started the program back in 2018 with the definition of the dose syntax guidance in an experimental form at that time, which was ratified not long after by a report from PRSB showing why interoperability in medicines was required. As we moved into 2019, we formed a working group which was with stakeholders from service and from system suppliers, and started to look at how we could define some of this guidance into real world workflows. Our first of type was in Derby in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, using the implementation guidance that we'd worked with CMM and DXC on implementing for an EPMA stock control interface. We've taken that guidance further and worked with the UK core team to define it into UK core for all of the medicines resources, which then allowed us to get to the point of October last year, incredibly a year on, I think near enough to the day, that we published our ISN for interoperable medicines, and that has an implementation date of 31st of March next year. So that phase of our program was very much about definition. It was about getting the standards right, fit for purpose, and available to use. But of course, defining a standard isn't the end of it, and we need to get people to adopt. Could I have the next slide, please, Shazad? Thank you. So, as Shazad mentioned, at the very heart of our interoperable standards is identifying the medicine or the active ingredient. So DMD is the terminology that we used to use to do that, sorry. Now, DMD adoption is very high in primary care because of the process that's used for EPS and onwards to the BSA. In secondary care, the benefits have been less easy to see in the past, and it's really interoperability that forms those benefits. And until the standards were there was really no drive for people to move towards it, or no real meaningful drive. So recognizing this, we started to move ourselves towards supporting adoption with an education program. Hearts and Minds, we called it, program to really show people where DMD fed into their interoperability. And over the last year, we've seen a real increase and move forward in the adoption of DMD into secondary care systems. Next slide, please, Shazad. But the terminology itself doesn't sit alone, and we've also mentioned SNOMED CT, which is another terminology that sits within the interoperable med standards. SNOMED and DMD work hand in hand to start to build the dose, but there's some misalignment between the release cycles of the two of them and some slight differences in the data structures. And so we started some work to look at how we could improve this, to actually improve interoperability and support the standards, making it easier for people to adopt. Next slide, please. That work began early last year. We commissioned a piece of work with DHSC to do some discovery around how those standards could become more aligned. That initiated with a wide consultation, can't speak, across stakeholders, which we then got an initial report back and a further consultation to broaden that across a wider group. We ended up with 17 recommendations coming out in a report in September of last year. Taking that report, we obviously needed to act upon it in some way, and so we formed a steering group with stakeholders across the HSC, NHS organisations, industry, and others. It's a very wide steering group to actually refine how we could start to move these recommendations forward again into the real world, because they were quite wide sweeping. We formed working groups to do this, to absolutely focus on each and individual of those recommendations. And then as we did that through the winter, we came into March this year and started to form our options appraisals for what could be taken forward, which we presented to the steering group in June. I'm not going to steal the thunder of Joe, who will be presenting what that looks like later on today, but that is one of our presentations to say what the 10 enhancements to these terminologies look like and what they'll mean for you in the real world. Next slide, please. So at the same time, we've recognised that from an adoption perspective, we needed to start to give tools for people to adopt. So we've moved ourselves and started to pivot the programme from that definition phase. I mean, it's not all done, we're still defining things, but we need to be able to get that out there and get people to be supported to use it. So we've taken a few themes that we've started to build upon. And so on our website, we've published some business case support materials to help people who need to justify why they need to build money and build a project to drive forward their interoperability. So there are business cases, a benefits toolkit that we've produced. There's information that links the interoperability benefits to the strategic drivers across the NHS, the long-term plan and the overprescribing review as an example, so that people can effectively build a case for change. We've also created a number of briefings that are on our website that are targeted at different audiences across organisations to give that real understanding of what interoperability could mean to their organisation. I've already mentioned education and awareness campaign. So we produced e-learning materials which are accessible through e-learning for health, talking heads videos and animations to try and describe how interoperability comes together and what difference it makes to a patient's journey. As I said, we didn't stop where we'd got to a point of definition, and throughout this year we've been enhancing our technical guidance. So we have worked on certainly further work on meds administration and complex infusions, and we continue to build that as we hit more and more use cases and start to see the real world challenges. We've commissioned some work on rendering of medicines into a shared care record, which is about actually what is the right and safe way to present medicines in a record so that it's consistent. And we've worked with early adopters to create blueprints that can be shared for others to then follow and have lessons from those to help their own implementations. Our weekly working group continues. It's each Monday, and we invite everyone to join us there. Andy from our team sends out an agenda each week, and topic changes depending on the area of work we're on. It flexes in size, obviously, because of that, but certainly it's something that we aim to continue and would encourage people to join us on that. We have looked into service transformation and formed a whole work stream around it, recognising that we need people in system suppliers to be able to adopt and have support to adopt and understand that they are developing against our standards in the right way. In the same way, for service to deliver, we've got our engagement team who are working with trusts and providers to align them to our to our program and make them aware of the work so that we can help them and guide them to the right tools. We do a lot of this through our website and our bulletins, but what we've been doing recently is working with a group of user-centered design team to actually look at how we can better improve our program to make it more accessible to everybody and provide a better service for you. Next slide, please, Shazad. And they are the themes that we're bringing into today. So we have the Interoperability Learnathon with Interoperable again, and thank them again for their support and organisation. But you'll see that those same themes are flowing into the presentations that we'll see. So later on, teams from Somerset and Lancashire that we're working with will be presenting on interoperability benefits, not easy to say. And we have the University of Manchester presenting on their research into the benefits and impact on harms. Joe will be talking about those UK terminology improvements and the enhancements at the end of the day. And we'll have the ePraise team talking about their risk and safety evaluation tool that will be soon launching and will help you optimize EPMA systems. Rob from the team will be talking about the updates to those syntax I mentioned and some of our future plans. And we're joined by the UK Core team who will be talking about how UK Core is developing and how we're working with them. PRSB also join us around the diabetes standard. They'll be presenting on that and how that is starting to align and how we align it to FHIR, which will be a theme in the hack. And we have a group up here of our user engagement team, our PERM team, along with our service transformation team and UCD team, all talking about some of the work that we're doing and what we want to take forward to make it easier to engage with us. And then the other group that are here today are our Medicines Optimization Digital Learning Network Community of Practice, who will be presenting on how you can join that and how you can contribute. So there's a mixture of technical and less technical items throughout the day, all focused on how we can help and support you. And obviously we'd like to take any feedback as we go through the day, and there will be questions and opportunities to do that. This is leading, as we said, into the hackathon, which will be the 18th and 19th of October. Not far away. We were delayed slightly with this Learnathon due to the period of mourning. So we're a bit closer together, but later on at the end of the day, I'll give a wrap up talking about some of the things that we're looking to do there. And then actually the beyond the hackathon, some insight into what we're hoping to plan to move things further forward with a wider group of stakeholders. I shall pause and finish there, Dan, which should give you a couple of minutes just to hand over into the next presentation.
Thank you for that. So yeah, I think we will probably struggle to get meaningful time for question and answer. So if anyone has any questions, please leave them in the chat and we will either respond here or get back to you outside of this meeting. So I think it is time for our next presentation. That's Bill Lush from NHS Digital is here to talk about DMD picking list, using terminology server. So Bill, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and we'll also give you co-host access while you've got it now, so you can share your screen. So over to you, Bill.
Oh, yes, I've still got my Star Wars background on. Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Bill Lush. I'm a terminology specialist at NHS Digital. And I'm going to, can you see my screen for starters? Not yet. You should be able to see my screen now. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, marvelous. So yeah, I'm Bill Lush. I'm terminology specialist at NHS Digital, and I'm going to talk to you today about the terminology server, trying to focus it on picking lists. It's going to be so what I'm going to talk about today is a very 5-minute overview of the structure of DMD and the terminology server, and then I'm going to go into a really technical demonstration showing you URL calls to the terminology server, and explain how you build up queries initially, and then go into actually building more specific picking list type queries. So the data in the terminology server, we have what are called code systems, and these code systems I think of as great big, or great big buckets, basically, depending on the type of terminology. So the core DMD data is all that SNOMED coded data. So this is what the big bucket represents in the middle. The URL on it is the unique identifier for that code system. And in there, as I say, we have all that SNOMED coded DMD data. So your AMP, VTMs, VMPs, AMPs, VMPPs, AMPPs, routes, forms, ingredients, suppliers, and units of measure. So they're all in this bucket. And when you're querying it, you're literally querying everything in that bucket. And I'll show examples of that going on later. But DMD also has little buckets around it to support it. If you want further detail about why we have these little code systems, you can go to the documentation, which I'm going to give you a link to in this presentation. But again, you can see that these little buckets or little code systems have unique URLs to identify them as well. So you've got your colors, your controlled drugs, your licensing authorities, flavors, all those additional DMD sub code systems. So in the terminology server, we do have some extra codes that aren't part of DMD, and these are to get that rich data. So I call them grouper codes. So we have things like AMPs, AMPPs, so your actual medicinal products. So under those are then all that DMD data. So we start off, it's a sort of a hierarchy. So you have DMD at the top, and then you have the group of codes underneath, and then, as I say, all the detail underneath. So here's an example using the Shrimp browser, which comes along with the terminology server. The Shrimp browser has kindly grouped all these routes together in smaller groups. The terminology server doesn't do that as such. Underneath the root will be all the routes. These groupers don't actually exist except for in the Shrimp browser. So that shows you, so we've got this big bucket with all the data in, and this shows you how we group it into the actual different DMD concepts. So if you want to understand more about that structure of DMD, you'll need to go into the this documentation here that gives you the structure of DMD. It's quite detailed. If you need any further information about the terminology server, about how to connect to it, all about information about that sort of thing is available at the terminology web service website. And if you're not getting the information from either of those two sources, then try contacting us on information.standards@nhs.net. So that is my high-speed overview of the structure of DMD in the terminology server. So I'm about to just jump into my technical demonstration, so wish me luck. So just before I go into that, the terminology, I'm focusing really on DMD because that is our source of data, the DMD drug data we have to share. So there are these predefined value sets. If you're, and you'll see where I'm coming from with these value sets, and then so if you want to query the whole of DMD by using a value set, the URL that defined the code system is used, then a slash and then VS on the end, and that's the value set. And when you put that into a query, it'll be pulling back everything from the DMD data. But we've also defined a couple more specific value sets. So again, it's the DMD URL to start with. And then we have value set and then what the value set is. So we can, and of course, these select purely VTMs, VMPs, AMPs, VMPPs, AMPPs, ingredients, those sort of things. These predefined ones will still, I'm assuming that everybody or most people understand DMD data. So these value sets still return both valid and invalid concepts, but we'll get into the detail of that as again. The subcode systems also have their own value sets for querying the whole environment. And again, it's the URL of the code system / VS for that specific value set. Okay, so let me stop sharing for now. How do I do that? Bear with me. Yeah, there you go. Just go into my environment here. Okay. So first I need to connect to the terminology server. So I'm just grabbing my OAuth 2 authentication token. All that detail is in the terminology server web pages. And what I'm just going to talk through the structure of the URLs to start with. So I hope everyone can see this. I have increased the size of it so it should be visible and readable. So that first bit up to the fire message there is the base URL. Value set says I'm going to do something with value sets, and the $expand is saying I want to pull back a value set. A value set can be a list of 0, 1 or more codes. I know it's stating the obvious, but there you go. So basically it's saying I want to pull back the codes, a value set of codes, and we're going to build up with the parameters what that value set is going to take its data from. So the first parameter I'm going to use is URL, and it's saying, right, I want the URL of the value set you want to get the data from. So I'm going to just pick a small value set because to show you what's happening. So I'm just going to get everything out of the controlled drug value set. So this is everything in the controlled drugs, and this is the data being returned. So as you can see, the core data that returns is a system code that tells you where the data's coming from. So this is telling you it's a sub DMD code system, what the code is, and the display. So that's your basic data coming back. So what I'm going to go on to now is exactly a similar query. I don't want to pull everything back from the DMD data. So in using this DMD URL, I'm going to be pulling back everything from the DMD terminology, but I'm putting the count in of 10 at saying I only want to pull back the first 10 records. Okay, so this is sort of standard querying stuff. So throughout this, my URL is actually going to stay the same. It's just the parameters we're talking about now. So I'm just going to pull back the first 10, and all my queries from now on are going to have this count in it. So this query is actually pulling it back 382,000 records, but obviously it's pulling the first 10 records back with the standard data, system code display. So just explain the offset command. So it's the same query. I'm getting everything from DMD, count of 10, and then the offset of 10. So rather than getting the first 10, I'm now getting the second 10. So that's how you can work through it. So 382,000 again, but the next 10 records. So what I'm trying to do is build up your knowledge of the actual URLs and the parameters so that you can really understand what's going on when I'm doing the filtering. So now I'm going to add in the filter parameter here now. So basically I'm using the URL again of DMD. I'm getting the first 10, but I want to filter on the name. The filter is a very powerful parameter. You can search on the code and the display. You don't have to put in the full description. We can put in iBuPro 400, isn't it? I think something like that. Let's see what comes back. Yeah, there's. So what I'm doing here is searching across the whole of DMND for everything that has ibuprofen 400 in it, or ibupro. If I take that out, we're getting ibupro again, but this is looking across VTMs, VMPs, AMPs, VMPPs, AMPPs, ingredients. So all that data will be coming back by filtering it. So most people won't want to get everything like that. So we can use these predefined value sets. So I'm using the VMP value set there to pull back, and I'm doing the first 10. So there we go. You get a bit more detail at the top because it's a predefined value set, and we're getting 22,000 records back this time. And as you can see, these are VMPs. And again, we can use the filter against the VMPs. So there's the URL stating my value set that I'm using. My count of 10, obviously, so I don't kill the presentation. And again, more detail because it's but this time we've only got 45 records, and they are all VMPs that have ibupro in it. Just to prove I'm not cheating here, I'll put in another one, a 10. Actually, let's try and spell that right. There we go. So this time we've only got 19, and we're just getting a 10 along VMPs. So there's a lot of rich data in DMD. I'm not going to go into the detail of it. It's all in that structured document. So just to prove that there is a lot of rich data in it, I've added this additional property, parameter, should I say, this parameter called property, and set it equal to star. As most developers will know, star means pull back everything. So off we go. If I pull back that. So I'm pulling back with a filter of paraset. People know me and know that's my favorite search one. So pulling back 81 VMPs because we're using the VMP URL there, the value set. So we're just pulling back these. And we've got all these parameters: inactive, parents, children's. So you can get the parents of a VMP. So parents where it's a code, like that will be VTMs. Sorry, that's a child. So that'll be AMPs and VMPPs. And parent, you have one parent of the VMP telling you it's a VMP, and the other one going to the parent of what this product is. So there's lots, all that rich DMD data is also in there. And so what I'm doing now, we don't really want all that. You don't want to clutter yourself up. We can restrict it to specific properties. So here, I'm selecting the property of invalid flag and the property of parent. So I'm just restricting it. So I'm doing the paraset again against the VMPs. Okie doke. So there we go. We've got 81 records again, and there we are, just selecting less data down, and then there's their core data of the system code display. Right, so that I haven't actually got into the querying just yet, but you can see the basic parameters, and the point of this video is you can come back and you can rewind it and pause it and see what I'm actually doing and get a feel of what's going on. But the real power of the terminology server is actually going to come when we start using this post call. So I'm doing the same command, so the same URL of our core, our terminology server endpoint. I'm telling it I want to do something with a value set, and I'm telling it I want to create a value set and pull back some information. Because it's a post command, I put in the body, and being a Fire terminology server, I'm sending in a Fire parameters resource. And each of these resources, so all I'm going to do is replicate my last query. So all of these parameters are the parameter well, the parameter name, so URL, and the value. So this is the value set for the VMPs. There's my parameter for the count, restricting my filter parameter. So I'm saying I want to pull back anything that's got a description of paraset. And I want to pull back the property of invalid and the property of parent. So I've absolutely replicated this URL call, this get call, but using a post command using the parameters. And there we go. And as you can see, again, we get exactly the same detail back as previously with 81 records and those parents and VMPs and things like that. Brilliant. So this is the last one about sort of teaching you about the basic parameters, because again, these are the parameters. I'm adding in my count so I don't kill the presentation, because otherwise, if I have 300 odd thousand records coming back, it's gonna take forever to present. This time I'm adding in a new parameter. The name is value set. Notice the lowercase v, the uppercase s, and it's a resource this time. And this resource is a value set, which is, notice the uppercase v and the lowercase s this time. And in this, we can compose our query. And what I'm replicating here is exactly how the VMP value set is. This is the query that the VMP value set runs against. Basically, this is what sits underneath that value set that you're querying against. And you have this compose, and you're saying, what I want in this value set that I'm querying here, I want to include everything from the DM&D code system, and I want to filter it where the parameter equals VMP. So I've added in my count at the top so I don't kill it, otherwise I pull back 81 odd thousand records. Oh no, 22,000 in this. And there we go. That's exactly what the VMP value set is running as. Okay, so I wanted to introduce you there to all the basic parameters. So this next bit will make more sense to you as I start running through the picking lists. So as I say, that VMP value set only pulls back all VMPs, whether they're valid or invalid, because of the use case we designed against it. So how do I exclude invalid concepts? So there's actually two ways of doing this. So it'll take so again, we do the parameters. Again, I've got my count, so I don't kill the query, the presentation, and my value set. So I'm including everything from DM&D. So think I'm in GP land, primary care, and I want to have a picking list for all valid VMPs. So in this instance now, again, I'm selecting everything from DM&D. I can filter. So I'm saying I want everything where the parent has the concept has a parent code equal to VMP. And here with DM&D, if a concept is invalid, it has an invalid flag that's set to equal to 1. In the terminology server, if it doesn't have that invalid flag set to 1, there won't be an invalid flag against it. So what we want to pick up is where that invalid flag does not exist. So this is where we use that invalid, and we can use the operation of exists and false. So this is saying that this invalid flag doesn't exist, therefore the concept must be valid. Okay, so let me see. Oh, I've also got a filter on it. So let me just pop that off for a second. So as I say, I've got my count on there to make sure I don't kill the presentation. Again, we've got 22,000. Brilliant. And what we can also add to this, as you just saw, is we can also add additional parameters like the filter and restrict it. So this is pulling back all VMPs. Let me get rid of that. Just to prove it's VMPs. There we go. If I hadn't put in the VMP up there, we'd have had VTMs coming up first. And then we can add in the filter 500. And the filter is very powerful. It doesn't have to have text in the correct order. So if we come down, you can see the paracetamol 500, whatever. I can put the 500 the other side. And there we go. Exactly the same data is coming back. Okay, so jumping on a bit. So I'm still in my primary care world, but I don't want to just pull back VMPs. I want to query both VMPs and AMPs in my picking list rather than just one. So we can do this. So again, I've got my standard count parameter so I don't kill it. But this time, rather than saying the parent is equal to VMP, I'm saying it's like the SQL in command. I want the parent to be either VMP or AMP. So that's what the in operator there is doing there. VMP, AMP, invalid. And then my user, no, I think we'll go for a different one this time. Let's go for it this time. So this is effectively where you can simulate by a user doing their querying bit, but against this sort of query. So we've got 140 records. And as you can see, there's a Atenolol 100 milligram tabs. And here are some AMPs as well. So we could actually put in here, if we only wanted a specific, so we can actually pick up the actual supplier, or we could do a specific brand. So let's have a look what we've got here. Panadol, there we go, that's what I was going for, marvelous. So there we go, that's just showing that you can lump more than one. I could add VTM to this as well if we wanted, so by just doing comma VTM, so you could have multiple groups of DMD data being picked up. I said there was more than one way of getting rid of the invalid flag. So this is to show another part of this the power of this querying. So in this one, I'm doing the VMPs and AMPs again, but this time, so I'm including the filter, I'm including everything from the DMD and filtering it to select only where the parent codes are VMP and AMP. So this time there's another section you can have to this compose, which is exclude. So I'm excluding everything from DMD, which has an invalid flag equal to 1. So, and again, I've set it to paracetamol just to help things out. So there we go, 359. Let me just prove that some are being, if I set that to 0, that should go up. Yeah, 368, that's everything because there isn't anything with an invalid code of 0. So in doing that, I'm removing 9 records which are set to invalid. There we go. And these are all those concepts. So that you can use exclude to exclude records out of a value set that you're returning, if that's your preferred method. Or you can do this invalid exists, false to get rid of invalid records. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do now is do is another one. I'm going to show you picking VTMs. I'm going to do routes, and then I'm going to show you a picking list, which is taking a code from that VTM list and a route list. So you can build up picking lists by as from other codes, basically. So again, as you'd expect, VTM, and I've got a filter on for paraset. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to atenolol. So we've got 3 records. These are the active ones. So here's another picking list. So I'm going to pick from routes. So again, I've got my count of 20. I've got a parent equals routes. So I'm picking up all the routes in DMD. DMD doesn't have an invalid flag against routes, and there are 2 obsolete DMD route codes. So what we can do here is exclude, and this time we're excluding from the DMD code system, but this time I've got the concept functionality in here. So I'm selecting the specific codes of the codes I'm excluding. This concept bit could be used in the include bit if you wanted to include specific codes, but I've just got it in down here in the exclude. So I just want to exclude those 2 specific codes. So I send that. Oh, did I have a filter on that? Yes, I had a filter for all the anything starting with, so intradermal, intrabursal. So there's, how many was it? 32 records in there, starting with intra. But I actually want oral. I'm going to look for oral because I'm not very original. So I'm going to grab the oral code. And now with my new, this value set is going to be searching for the VTM I've selected in the VTMs. And so what I'm wanting to select back here is VMPs. So what I want here is I want to pull back all the VMPs for atenolol. Let me grab atenolol now. So I'll pop that, I think I've already, yes, it is in there. And the root of that one. There we go. Just make sure I've got the right ones in there. Oh, it was the right one. So, yep. So I want all the parents where they're VMP, so I'm selecting the VMPs, and has a parent of atenolol, and has a root of oral, and the concept is valid as well. Okay, so this is pulling back 16 records, and you can see atenolol, all the atenolol VMPs that can be taken by the oral route. So I think you can see with what I've done there how picking lists can be picked up and built and used and fed information into each other. There's one really powerful one that I found. Again, I've got my count in here, and it's called the descendant of property. So there is a property called concept. You can't really see it. It's a virtual thing, but it's basically querying again. It's the DM&D code effectively in this instance. So I'm looking at the concept, and I've got this concept, and the concept ID I'm looking at is, I think it was the atenolol one, was it? Yes, it is the atenolol one. And I want all the descendants of that VTM of atenolol. So what that'll do is I've got the VTM of atenolol, and it'll get me all VMPs, all AMPs, all VMPPs, and all AMPPs. And then I can add in some additional queries and saying, right, I've got the VTM code here, but I want the AMPPs, so not the direct descendants, but the grandchildren, if you like, and I want them to be valid. So we can query, and it's pull back 135 AMPs. And if we go down, you can see they're all TIVA, all the suppliers against them. Now then, if I change that to VMPs and send that as 17, and as you can see, these aren't AMPs this time, they're just VMPs. And if I go to the pack data to just show you that packs are on there, there you go, 100 milligram tablets, 28 tablets. Okay, so that is quite a powerful one. So that's as far as I'm really going to go on this presentation, because I'm sure I'm boring some of you to death with this. One final bit is that all the subcode systems can be queried in the same way, using this value set and using the system URL without that /vs on the end, because that's that would be the value set. So at that point, is there any questions? Anyone got any?
So Bill, there were a number of questions in the chat section. So there were questions around terminology server access, DM&D, trade families, graphical user interface. But thanks to Joe, Omar, and Malcolm, they've answered most of the questions.
Brilliant.
The
Thank you
only,
all.
the only outstanding question is, can the terminology server accept uploads of multiple mappings from the hospital?
It depends what you actually mean by multiple mappings. Yes, we would have to talk about what you're actually talking about there. You can send multiple codes up, but we're talking about just querying directly to DM&D. So I'd have to take that one offline and talk in more detail on that one.
So I think that was from Dermot. So Dermot, if you want to clarify your question, otherwise we can pick it offline.
Yeah, I just put in an example there. I don't know if that's relevant or not.
Bear with me, see if I can see. Where's the chat? Where's the chat? Sorry, I've just, because I'm sharing, I can't work out where.
So I can read it out. So the example is a batch upload of, say, 15,000 drugs in a local formulary mapped to DM&D.
Yeah, we're talking about mapping here. This presentation is really focusing on picking lists. We're not talking about mapping here. So are you talking about sending codes up, or are you talking about sending text strings up, or what?
Yeah, so it's probably better if I just say it verbally. So my understanding is the terminology server has to be populated with mappings from the hospitals themselves. So then the systems in the hospitals can reference.
The terminology server is just DM&D data. That's all it is. What I'm talking here about the terminology server is just DM&D data that can be queried. The mapping of a hospital will be internal to the hospital system.
Okay, so the hospital would need their own internal mappings for all legacy systems to refer to be DM&D aligned. That would have to happen inside the hospital itself.
Where it happens, I don't know. But the terminology server basically is just DM&D data. It's a web API that can query DM&D data that's right up to date.
Yeah,
you don't need to do all that downloading or anything.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but it occurred to me that if hospital staff do go to the trouble of, let's say, mapping, we're still talking about DM&D here, but it could be anything to snail mail as well.
Yeah,
but if the terminology server is then populated with those, which would be an absolutely huge amount of mappings over time, everything would be interoperable because you'd be bouncing queries off the terminology server.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, The terminology server really is the national terminology web API for querying that data. Where the mapping sits, we still need to work out really.
Okay.
Can I, do you mind if I just try and help with an answer, at least from my understanding of how this is meant to work in an ecosystem? So
yeah,
I think the aim is that the national terminology server contains the nationally relevant content that's then available for use by everybody else. The kind of thing that you're talking about around effectively local mappings or local artifacts, the model would be that you would have a terminology server node in the ecosystem that syndicated the content from the national server and then added the local content that you're talking about. So what you described could either be a file concept map that represented the relationship between your local formally code and DM&D, or it could actually be a code system extension, your local version of the national DM&D code system. So from a sort of from a functional perspective, the terminology server can do all the things you're looking for, but from a content management perspective, I think the policy at the moment on the national server is that the national server has the nationally relevant content that everybody else reuses, but it doesn't have local content on it.
Okay.
So that's the kind of model that I think has been envisaged, and so there's a sort of there's a difference between technical capability of the terminology server versus the policy around content management in the national server. That maybe makes the question seem like we're giving an answer of no when the answer is actually yes. This is how you do it.
Yeah, I think I follow. It makes sense that there would have to be a national level terminology server. This makes perfect sense to me. Yep. I'm just curious about the methods of extrapolating from that asset down to, if you like, the grassroots level, so things can, achieve the alignment which is necessary. I'm actually not too fussed on how that's done, to be honest. I'm just curious if there was if there is a strategic direction on that or not. But what you're saying now makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean the strategic direction and the way that the servers work is they have a syndication process that can be automated. So, for example, the NHS Scotland terminology server automatically syndicates all the content from the NHS digital server, and then they add in their own Scottish local content that's usable only by Scotland. And that's the model that would be used or was intended to be used through the system, so that you don't have to manage or create the nationally relevant content. You kind of get that for free by automatic syndication, but you just add the value and add the additional artifacts that are useful for what you're doing.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dougal. Dougal's from Daedalus, who support our terminology service. So thank you for that, Dougal.
No worries.
I think Ian made a similar comment that these local mappings are likely to be very local, definitely worth sharing for others to adapt, but not perhaps for the national server.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, just to add one more element to that, you can syndicate not just content from the national server, but you can syndicate content from somebody else's server too. So the syndication can be peer-to-peer, it can be top-down or bottom-up. The key thing is that you kind of manage the content that's relevant for you, and you, as wherever possible, reuse it with anybody else that might find it useful, rather than effectively duplicate the effort.
Noted. Thank you.
Bill, do you want to stop sharing your screen if it's easier for you to see the chat?
So, yeah.
There we go.
There's another one came in there, Dan.
Yeah. So just looking. So do you want me to share my screen? Would that be easier?
Well, I've got it now. Which one were you looking at, Chris?
So Thomas has just put another point in, and then Ian. So the last two notes in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Local mapping's a very local thing, not a national thing, like our terminology server. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bill? If not, do you also have any questions for Chris or Shazad? I think we're still on the call from the previous session. I think there were some questions around the medicine interoperability standard. So thanks,
I
Chris.
think I've answered them in the chat generally.
Yeah. So, but if you do have any questions, because we didn't have time in the last session, but if you do have questions, please shout now. So, Bill, there's one more question in the chat. I'll let you read that one.
Is there such a thing as a terminology server as a service for local mappings or ontologies? We benefit from that without necessarily wanting to manage the service ourselves. Local mappings is a difficult one because if it's local mappings, you're going to really have to manage it locally. We can't manage everybody's local mappings. So yeah, again, this presentation was about picking lists and stuff like that. Mappings is a very difficult one because there are a lot of different codes out there, local to local to your systems, and mapping to your different terminologies or whatever. So that's a whole nother subject we could have a chat around on the hackathon if you're joining us for that one. Are you able to give any more detail on what you're talking about there, really, David, at all, or not?
I can try. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, so my thinking is that we would benefit from having a terminology server that can provide our own terminologies for our own uses and perhaps mappings to other ones like national services. But
Right.
Is there a way of doing that without having to host infrastructure and things like that? Is there a way for smaller sites to do that without having to have an infrastructure project to go alongside? Can I just buy this in from someone and upload my own data to it?
Yeah, yes. So that's exactly what the terminology framework is designed to enable. So there was a competed terminology server framework to provide basically terminology services as a service, and there's a framework established that enables you to buy exactly what you're looking for. So effectively, you buy a terminology server as a service. It has all the content from the national server syndicated into it if that's what you want, and you just get the endpoints that allow you to, and the tools to manage the content that you need to or want to. So yes, absolutely. Please get in touch if you want to know more details.
Perfect, thank you. Was that Dougal from Daedalus? Was that?
It is, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
We're all putting in links to the terminology server website because all that detail's up there. It's on my presentation. There is a section on there of how to buy your own terminology server.
So links are in the chat. Thanks, Bill and Tracy. So if there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next session, which is user and trust engagement. I'm just checking if Andy is on the call. Will, I know I can see you, but I'm just wondering, are you covering for Andy today, or is Andy covering?
I'm hoping Andy is going to turn up for us today.
Okay. So, well, we still got 1 minute. I've just messaged him on Teams. But what's the running order? Is someone else who's going in first?
Yeah, I can share the slides. Bear with me.
Okay. So Arlene will make you so you're the co-host. So yeah, we'll just over to you, Arlene.
Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, we can see that now.
Fantastic. Shall I start, Will, or should we wait a little bit for Andy to join?
Let's give him his minute. then we can kick off.
We'll kick off. Okay.
Andy just messaged me, so I can confirm that you're on. So
He likes to make an entrance.
James Kane on as well?
You have seen James.
Okay.
See James, yeah. And just to confirm that at the end of this session, we also have some questions for you. So I'll share Mentimeter, and if colleagues could respond to that, that'd be great.
Is it worth putting the link for that in the chat now, Daniel, so people can get it up and ready?
Sure.
Thanks.
Shall I kick off?
In the chat. Arlene, if you kick off, I'll just keep Andy updated. Thank you.
Okay. Well, as you've been told, this is stakeholder engagement section, and it consists of Change Management Toolkit, which would be myself, Arlene Morgan, and James Kane from NHS Digital in the change management team. Then Trust Engagement, Will Gallia, I'm sure he'll introduce himself when we get to that section. And then User-Centered Design with Liliana Rodriguez. And then How Can We Help Support, which is Andrew Pritchard. I'm sure everyone will introduce themselves when they get to their sections. Okay. So looking at the Perm Change Management Toolkit, just a little bit of background. What is it? So it's a toolkit that provides a framework to achieve organizational transformation through the consideration of two of these three elements that you can see listed there. And normally people focus on the IT aspects of change, where technology is the enabler, but actually the difficulty is with the people and the process side of things, especially in large projects or change initiatives, and it relates to, so issues such as engagement and training can be problematic areas. So the toolkit contains over 70 tools. So I'm just trying to move my screen around. That's a little bit better. There we go. Over 70 tools, and it can help organizations, regardless of the size of their change initiatives or complexity, with change management. So how did it come about, the toolkit in its current form? Back in April, at the CIO Touch Base, they ran a Menti survey. And the question was asked, what are the SME skills that they'd find most useful to be accessed from a centralized function? And as you can see from the word cloud there, change management came up as the top, even when it's spelled incorrectly, it's still there. So we, as a team, were commissioned to, we had a toolkit that we used internally. We were commissioned to have it external, so that external organisations in NHS and healthcare could access it. So who is it for? It's for anyone, any person in health or care who's interested or involved in change, regardless of your skill, expertise or knowledge. As you can see, CIOs, CCIOs, change managers, etc. Are accessing it. We have just put together a little matrix at the bottom of the screen there, you can see. So you could be a white belt, an absolute novice, you have very little understanding of change, or a black belt at the other end of the scale where you have lots and lots of knowledge. This toolkit is for you. Okay, so where does it sit? It currently sits on NHS Futures Workspace. As I've mentioned before, it's available for all members of health and care. It's growing rapidly. We're probably close to 700 members now. Every time we present, we have lots and lots of people joining, which is fantastic. And it's made up of 3 key components, which James will take you through when he does a live demo. And then we have a link there of how you can access it. If James is able to put that in the chat, that'd be fantastic. So what you do, you have to register, and then you're given access, and then you can have access to all of the tools, and you can join the discussion forums, etc. that's available on that space. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the feedback from the front line. As you can see, people are using it from all over the place. The bottom one there just shows an organisation that accessed the benefits tools, and they had great success with it. So it's really helping people out there. We've also had requests from people to join the workspace from the Parliament, from DEFRA, the Home Office, Department of Trade, and the Planning Inspectorate. So lots of interest going out currently for the toolkit. I'm going to hand over now to James, who's going to give you a live demo. So if I stop sharing, James, do you want to take control?
Yeah.
Okay. All yours.
Let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. So this is the Change Management Network. It's hosted on the Energy's Future site, and this is the landing page. So it's a network, it's a collaborative space for those interested in change management. Doesn't matter the complexity or scale of your change initiative, this is a site that's going to help you. As I scroll down, you can see the latest change management news scrolling across, so that links to some of the latest information and tools that can help you. And we've also got a blog there as well. Then as you scroll down, you can see the membership. So as Arlene said, that's growing all the time. So you can see all the different members of the network. And then you come into what's sort of the main area to access the main parts of the network. So we've got the change management toolkit, which I'll go into shortly. We've got a really useful discussion forum. So when you become a member of the network, you can start discussions, and other members can contribute to those discussions. And it's just a great way of sharing your experiences, sharing best practice. And you can see from these discussions, quite a lot of people are now adding to those, and it's building up that community of practice for change management in the NHS. So I go back to the main landing page. We've got a learning and support area. Here we've got links and resources for you to get the most out of the toolkit and change management approaches. So here we've got links to different e-learning and training and different documents that can help you in terms of learning and support. We've got an events calendar with upcoming events on change management. There's an intro section just explaining what the network is. And then we come on to our change phases. So this will make a bit more sense when I go into the toolkit shortly, but our toolkit's based on this phased approach. So typically you'd have 5 phases in any change initiative, starting from phase 1 where you define the change. Then as you move through to phase 4, you prepare, and then you plan the change, and then phase 4, you're implementing that change, go live, and then phase 5, you're then reinforcing and sustaining the change. And within each of those phases, you can drill down, you can see the outputs, and within those are activities and tools and techniques that can help you with those activities and your change initiative. As we scroll down, on the left-hand side, we've got links to our Twitter feed, and on the right-hand side is really useful YouTube introducing you to change management. Further down, we've got our blog area. So members are adding blogs on interesting change management themes. This one's about Change Onion, just explaining some of the differences between business change and change management. So those are really useful blogs for members to look at. And then in terms of accessing the tools, I'll show you the way that you'd access it through the actual toolkit. But once you're more familiar with the site, there is a folder called Change Management Tools, and it's in alphabetical order. So if you wanted to look at benefits map, you can click on that, and it tells you all about this tool, and it gives you a link to a template on this as well, and how to do benefits mapping. But now I'm going to go back to the main landing page, and I'm going to go back up to the main area, as I mentioned before, and access the toolkit area. So click on the Change Management Toolkit, and this comes into that toolkit area of the site. If you scroll down, you'll see that there is it's almost like a preview of the toolkit. So just lets you look at the content, but this is just a preview, so none of the links will work. To actually download the toolkit itself and get that full interactivity, you need to actually download and view the toolkit. So if I just click on that, Open that file. So now in the actual toolkit itself, so if I scroll down, there's some information about introducing the toolkit, who's it for, how it should be used, what change management is, and how to use the toolkit. So it's got what all the different symbols mean and how you navigate through the toolkit. Then we come to that change phases. So as I showed you before, this is the home screen, and the difference now is you can actually drill down into these different phases. So I can actually drill down into, for example, phase 1, pre-discovery. And this is the phase 1, you define the change, and it's got some outputs here that you can drill down to. So in phase 1, you want to develop that change vision and communicate it to your stakeholders, and you want to develop that case for change. And within those activity outputs, there are activities that you can do. So for example, compelling case for change, I can click on that, and it gives you a bit of an introduction on how to develop a compelling case for change. On the right hand side is some useful tips, and in the bottom right hand side is links to the Effective Change Manager's Handbook and a page reference for further reading. If you don't have access to the handbook, we do have links on a lot of these themes and tools to parts of the internet we've sourced to find out more information, or watch a video to find out more about this particular topic or activity. So to develop a case for change, you can see at the bottom there are some key activities to do. One of those is identifying drivers, risks, and potential resistance for your change. So I'm going to click on that activity, activity 3. And this key activity, it shows you in the middle a bit of a narrative about how to do this activity and what the outputs will be. And then at the bottom, you've got tools and techniques that can support this activity. So you've got these tools at the bottom, and there are 70+ tools that you can view. And I'm just going to go to demonstrate one today, which is the force field analysis. So I'll just click on that, and it takes me to the force field analysis page on the site. And every tool and technique's got a similar format like this. On the left-hand side, it'll tell you what the tool is, when you would use it in your change initiative, who should be using it, why you would use this particular tool, so the rationale for use, and how to use it, so step-by-step guidance. On the right-hand side is an image of what a force field analysis template would look like, so like an example of a completed version. And then some of our tools and techniques got videos, like a quick video on how to actually use this tool. We've also got, for most of our tools and techniques, actual templates, so blank templates you can pick up and use that straight away on your change initiative. So if I clicked on the force field analysis template and I download and view that, and this is just showing you one of the examples of these templates that we have in our toolkit. So you can see here it's blank, but you can pick it up and use it straight away. So the idea of a force field analysis is that you would brainstorm the driving forces for the change. So the things that are going to push your change forward, you can brainstorm them with stakeholders and rank them. Same with restraining forces. What are those things that are going to hinder your change? You can brainstorm them and score them as well. What happens is it gives you an overall score at the bottom, and that will indicate how successful your change is. And then you can actually develop an action plan on the next tab to augment those driving forces and reduce those restraining forces. That's just an example of one of the templates. So I'm just going to close that now. I'm just going to go back to the actual toolkit. So back in the toolkit, and I can navigate using the navigational buttons at the top through to the different areas, or I can go back to the home page and go into, for example, phase 4 deployment. And there's many more activities that you can look at, and tools and techniques that you can then download and use on your change initiative. Also, there's a search functionality at the top. So if there's a particular tool or subject that you're interested in, for example, change impact assessment, you can type that into your search bar at the top, and it will bring it up all the instances where that particular word appears. So again, it can actually find a particular tool like the change impact assessment. You can go to that tool. Like I said before, it's got that similar template telling you all the information about the tool, and then at the bottom, that actual template you can download and use. You can also subscribe to this particular content as well. So any updates to this tool, you can get the latest information. So that is just a quick run through of the toolkit and the Change Network site. The link's posted on the chat, so feel free to sign up for that, and then you can have access to all this content, the discussion forum, all the information I just told you about. So that's it from me, and I'll just hand you back to my colleague now.
Thank you, James.
Stop sharing.
I'll take back control. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I was waiting for confirmation. Brilliant. So I'm just going to quickly go through now some of our favorite tools from the toolkit. So James has just taken you through the force field analysis. The RACI matrix is this is a really useful tool. It helps to clarify the roles and responsibilities, as well as a governance of a change initiative. You have the bridges transition, and that's a really good tool because it focuses more on the transition of the change and not, more on the transition and not on the actual change itself. And it's what happens in people's minds as they go through change. There's a change network, which ties in with the RACI matrix, and it's really important to involve people across the organisation. And it's made up of change champions and change agents, and they assist in how engagements and comms gets out to members of the organisation. The process gap analysis ties in with the change assessment impact, and it helps to highlight what is current, what is to be, and it helps the organisation to create those action plans as well. You've also got, we also like the benefits discovery mapping and realisation plan, and the celebrating successes, no matter how small, they should be recognised as well. Okay, so what are the next steps? If you're not already done so, please join us on the future NHS Workspace. I think James has put that link in the chat there, so please join and you'll register, and then you'll be given access to it. Share the link. Please feel free to share the link with any relevant members of your team or people in your organisation, and then you can join us in building that vibrant community of practice. Whereas, as James showed you, there are lots of discussions going on with sharing learning and questions and comments going out in that discussion forum. And then invite us to share our passion for change management and the toolkit at any of your regional or ICS events and meetings. We've attended many nationally, and we're more than happy to attend any more in the future. So thank you for that. Are there any questions for us?
Arlene, sorry, you may not have time for questions.
Oh, okay, fine. They can put them in the chat and we can pick those up. That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlene.
Okay, so over to Will.
Brilliant, thanks, Arlene. So morning, everyone. My name is Will Gallier. I'm the product implementation lead for medicines interoperability in the PERM team, and also working on EPS Next Generation. And so I'm just going to talk very quickly for only a few slides. You don't need to listen to my voice for too long, just about what it is that we actually do and how we can help you within our engagements and linking people together for better conversations around medicines interoperability. So to achieve interoperability, and this is a really high level slide, I'm not going to go into any detail on this. There are essentially two ISNs that are really important to achieving that interoperability. There's that B4013, which is around the medicine, allergy, intolerance and data transfer, which I'm sure you're all well versed in. And then there's also SCC I0052, which is around the dictionary of medicines and devices. And those are the two really crucial building blocks around medicine interoperability for the whole ecosystem of interoperability to really be successful. And it's our job within PERM and within the implementation team especially to help you within NHS trusts, community spaces, wherever it is that you're looking to implement interoperability standards, to actually get that work done successfully and as cleanly as possible. Next slide, please. So, as I say, what is it that Perm do, and how is it that we can actually help? So again, this is a very, very high level overview of it, and so it's only broken down into 4 really, really sort of chunky components. So we are there to act as the conduit for dialogue, and that's a conduit for dialogue often between internally within a trust, between the trust and their local region, whether it's an ICS, whether it's other trusts within their local area, or between trust and suppliers, and also between yourselves and NHS Digital as well, because as you know, there is a significant program of work being undertaken by NHS Digital in this space, but it's not always the easiest, or it's never always been sort of the easiest of places to get involved with or to speak to. So that's definitely one of the functions that the Perm team are really good at, is linking you in the NHS to us in NHS Digital. We do provide subject matter expertise, or we can definitely link you into the right people within the programme to give you that subject matter expertise, because as I'm going to talk about in a couple of seconds time, you may be aware of the interoperability survey that we ran from April onwards this year, and hopefully you've all filled that out if you're on this call today, and if not, please go and do that. But what that has allowed us to do is to get a better breakdown of where individual trusts are in the system on their journey towards interoperability and towards meeting those standards. And it's allowed us to start interacting with those trusts and to link them into the correct areas of the programme, for instance, where there is that subject matter expertise to help you, or like you've just seen, the change management network's now available, and also ourselves as business change and change management experts, there's all that expertise available to you to help you on this journey and to make this implementation of interoperability a success for you. As I said, we are that link to the programme for the NHS. It's a really important part of our work, in my view, that we do provide that feedback to the programme, because programmes by their very nature aren't always as close to the NHS as they'd like to be, but they need that feedback from real users on the ground, from clinicians, from administrators, from secretaries, from the porters if needs be, to actually see how the work that they're doing is having an effect on the real NHS. And vice versa, we can also take information from the programme and bring it to you out there in the real world to help you understand why it is that something is being asked of you, because some of these things are quite nebulous, some of them are a little bit not very opaque, and it can be challenging to try and realise why you're being asked to do these things. And that's our job, is to get that message across to you in a way that makes sense, and for you to realise that we are here to help. We also provide a function where we give you access to data, and access to data around interoperability, and that at the moment is mainly in the form of the survey that was done, as I've said, but also the dashboard that's now available, that's been published on the back of that survey, to give you in the NHS really the tools that you need to help you work yourselves on that interoperability journey to make it a real success for yourselves. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the survey, as I say, that's been the main core of our work over the last few months, and it's really helped us, it's helped the programme, and it's helped the sort of the wider, bigger NHS at the higher level to see just how things are moving in the interoperable medicines world. So it was mainly designed just to see what the status was of organisations in terms of their interoperability and their compliance to the ISN, and to give us a way of comparing the results from this year to last year to see where trusts and organisations and the NHS as a whole is moving on that journey. The data has now been collated and has been published on a publicly available dashboard on a Power BI report, and it's a fully interactive report where you can go and cut the data how you want. So as I say, you can look at your individual trust, you can look at an ICS, or you can look at the whole national view, or you can even break it down by system supplier. So if you have an incumbent, say, EPMA supplier within your trust, and you want to know how colleagues in the NHS around the country are doing with that supplier in terms of their interoperability journey, then you can use our dashboard to see that information. And again, using us to facilitate those conversations, we can start some real dialogue across the whole system towards working on the interoperable med standards. Now, as I say, a little bit of a plea, if you haven't yet filled out your survey, there is still time to do so. It hasn't gone away. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Is either the form itself on the website, which again, if you go to that link there, which will also be shared out afterwards, you can access the survey from there. Or if you want to talk us in Perm through your answers to that survey, then you can do so as well, and we can fill that out on your behalf. Either way is fine to us, as long as we get that data, because the data will help you in the short term and in the long term. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick screenshot of the dashboard as it is at the moment, and again, it is being updated and built on, and data will be flowing into it from other sources as well. But it's just to give you a really quick overview of what that dashboard looks like, and to give you an idea of some of the fields that you can filter on, and how you can cut the data so that you can make it make sense to you to help you in this journey. I say this is not that's just a pure screenshot. It's not a live demonstration. Although again, if you would like to see the survey and the dashboard, sorry, in more detail, then like I say, please get in touch with us, and we can go through that with you and help you sort of realize what the benefits that could be accrued from that will look like for your individual trust. So just some useful links and resources. So everything is on our website effectively, and all the resources and links that you need. It's a bit of a one-stop shop. So just to give you an idea of what is on there, there's some really useful information on the ISNs themselves and all the different medicine standards that link into that, and also around some of the technology in the background that's going into making interoperability actually a success and to be universally successful across all system suppliers that the NHS is working with. There's also some information on the medicine standards themselves, so some really good videos and webinars and different presentations to help users of all levels and of all sort of clinical experience work through that. There's an awful lot of information about DM&D. Colleagues in primary care will be well versed in the use of DM&D, as they've had to use it for EPS for a very long time, but it's not as prevalent in secondary care, or it certainly hasn't been as prevalent until fairly recently. So we understand that there's a significant change there for a lot of secondary care prescribers to use DM&D medicine standards. So there's a lot of information there, and again, that's something that our team is well versed in. We are subject matter experts in the use of DM&D, so we can help you with that implementation if you need us to be there to assist. Personally close to my heart is EPS Next Generation. So again, one of the real major sort of drivers with interoperability is actually giving access to outpatients, prescribers, the access to EPS, and there's some information there talking about how that works and how you can get involved with that if your trust is interested. And then there's just some more generic resources around digital and medicine and interoperability, including information for more senior colleagues within individual trusts, patients, and also colleagues out there in other parts of the NHS, such as primary care, that may not necessarily be as involved with this as they are at the moment. So next slide, please. So as I say, really our role is around being in touch with you, being involved with you, getting that dialogue going and building those relationships. So there is the Interoperable Medicines Working Group, which I'm sure many of you are already part of, but if not, again, please sign up and join that group. There's the Interoperable Medicines Bulletin as well. Again, self-service link there to sign up to that. There are the various e-prescribing masterclasses as well, which again are really useful snapshots for users within secondary care to attend. And then there's ourselves in Perm. So as I say, I'm Will. I sort of oversee the team, and then you've got your contacts there in your local regions. But by all means, get in touch with any of us, and we can certainly point you in the right direction. And I believe that was me. So I'll hand over to Liliana.
Thanks, Will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Liliana Rodriguez. I'm a senior services designer. I work for the 3 work streams in the Digital Interop Medicine program. Those are the EPS, the Meds Data, and the Interop Medicines. Can you pass the next slide, please? I've been in this program for a year already, and I have the nice task of have the user-centered design approach bring it to the team. And but then you could ask, what is user-centered design? So user-centered design is an interactive design process in which designers really focus in what the user's needs are. In that case specifically, then we need to really ask the users what are their needs. So we really need to work with them, with you, in order to understand those needs. Next slides, please. In the Interop Medicine program, we have been working with this philosophy, again, as I mentioned before, for the last year. And we have actually started the journey, which is, as you could see here, we have discovery and we have define and design. At the moment, we are in the development of a new website that is taking in consideration all the needs that we have been discovered. So next slide, please. The program since 2018, as Chris O'Brien was mentioned before, has created a series of what we call in the services design mind touch points. As you could see, some of them are about information awareness, some about education, support, and other different artifacts that have been created for your benefit and for in the path of the interoperability and the adoption of the interoperability. Next slide. But those don't work in synchronous sometimes. So what we really would like is with the use of user-centered design to have a better approach. And as I mentioned before, to really fulfill your needs. Next slide. So in order to understand what the needs specifically for Interop Meds were, we actually conducted a discovery phase. Originally, we interviewed 16 people. As you could see, we will really try to go through all the roles that are that involve interoperability within the trust. And then we also spoke with some of GPs as well, because they have already quite experience with the EPS system. And then from that, we actually understood that we really need to go forward. So next slide. So then in that particular point, we actually tried to do the next step, which is define and design. And then for that, we really conducted depth interviews with 33 people across several trusts. We work with them, meaning that what we did was not only to understand what their needs were, but we also prepare a prototype of the website with responding to those needs. And we actually hold a series of validation sessions with different volunteers from the trusts, and now we are in the next stage, which is the further development of the website. Next. So basically, what we are trying to do is really focus on those user needs that, as mentioned before, and moving from a project base to a more services design mindset. We are focusing in 3 main points. One is the structure, the interlink, and the translate, meaning the structure of focusing the efforts in resources, facilitation, support, and inspiration, and the interlink between all of these different touch points, and using a language that you could understand, because we understand as well that not everybody needs to we all have different languages. Some of us know not really technical ones. So then that's it. Thank you. We will have a question at the end.
I think, Arlene, would you just mind sharing the last slide? If you do need to get in touch with the team, you can contact them on interopmeds@nhs.net. At this point, I will share the link for the Mentimeter again. I'll open the Mentimeter for everyone to access. I'll just share my screen to quickly show you. So just pop the link in the chat. I will select the right window. Just bear with me. So we've got some questions for you that we'd like to get your response on. You should be able to do them in your own time. So there are 4 questions, so please make sure that you answer 4 questions as they're relevant to what we've covered so far. So what best describes your organization? And then the next question would be, oops. I hope you can all see my screen. Will, I can see you, just nod if you can. Great, thank you. And the second question is, how would you rate the current level of support from the program offers? And the options are high level, medium, just right, and then low, more required. Then the next question is, what else could the program do to support you? And then we have 2 options, do less or do more. And then there are 5 categories: technical guidance, user groups, knowledge sharing, tools to aid implementation, benefits, and business case support, and change management support. And the last one is just on Liliana's. We are inviting users to participate in the program website development. Please complete this form that you'll be able to see on your screens if you'd like to be involved. So if you can just answer those in your own time, and that'd be great. And I think we'll just give ourselves, at this point, we'll give ourselves 9 minutes for a quick break if you want to grab yourself. Sorry, Chris, are you going to say something?
I was just going to ask that people do stop at that question, because we'll be using that same Mentimeter further throughout the day, but without the context of the presentations, it won't be helpful if people move beyond that point.
Yeah, agreed. So only the first 4 questions, please. So yeah, I think that's it from us. Please take some time to get yourselves a drink, and it'd be great if we can be back by 12:30. So give ourselves, and then you can leave your camera. Well, you can turn off your videos and mute yourselves, which will just allow you to be able to enter without accessing the meeting. So see you in a few minutes.
Thanks, Daniel.
That's all.
Thanks, everyone.